Now the same rules would apply to schools, hospitals, office buildings. You want to get to small interior rooms on lower floors if you can. Hallways are pretty good. You want to avoid a large open area like a gymnasium, a big open area like a big box store like a Target or Walmart. Those are not really very safe places. And the thing is, if the roof peels off or collapses in, there's really no place to hide in that big open area. And once the roof goes, there's really not much supporting that big cinder block wall, so that can come tumbling down as well. You want to avoid the exterior walls and windows because flying debris can penetrate the windows, so you want to get, again, into interior spaces. Now, what happens if a tornado hits a downtown area like Chicago? Well, the Sears Tower is not going to collapse. This is Fort Worth, Texas, which had a tornado that went right through the heart of downtown. You can see the buildings are still standing, but just about every window is blown out. So that's going to be the biggest threat, is breaking glass and flying debris. So in a tall building like that, big steel and concrete buildings, you don't need to necessarily get down to a lower floor. You just need to get to the interior of the building. A hallway, a stairwell, something like that offers pretty good shelter. Just stay away from the windows. Now, years ago when I was a kid, they used to tell us to open windows when a bad storm was coming because scientists used to think that buildings literally exploded due to the rapid pressure change in a tornado. We now know that that's not true. Essentially, all the damage is caused by the strong wind and flying debris. So opening windows, closing windows really doesn't make much sense. You're just wasting time. You may only have a few moments to get to shelter, so you don't want to waste time messing with the windows. And what I tell people is, if a tornado hits your house, it's probably going to open the windows for you anyway, so why bother? Well, I think you get the point there. You don't want to stand in front of windows when a tornado is hitting, and certainly shouldn't be standing there with a video camera. But if you do, please send me a copy. That's good stuff. Mobile homes, I don't think we have too many mobile homes here in Chicago, but they're extremely vulnerable. And sometimes people use these mobile structures as temporary shelters while they're doing construction or building a building. So these can be very vulnerable places. Nationwide, about 40% of tornado fatalities occur in mobile homes, which is really a staggering number. They're very vulnerable. You need to get out and get into more substantial shelter. Vehicles are also not safe. This is a picture, again, from Parsons plant, and there were about 65 vehicles in the parking lot before the tornado hit. It wiped the parking lot clean. You can see the cars are just crumpled and deposited throughout the grounds there. So don't try to escape a tornado in your vehicle. The average tornado moves across the ground at 30 to 40 miles per hour. Sometimes they move as fast as 60 miles per hour. And you've been out there in traffic. You just can't escape a tornado in this kind of traffic. And also, you know, buildings and trees are going to obscure your view. You lose sight of the tornado, put yourself into real danger. Just pull over, get inside the nearest building, even if you have to knock on somebody's door, and get inside to shelter. This is actually a fairly weak tornado that skipped through this parking lot in Layton, Alabama, but is strong enough to flip over a few vehicles here. Now, you could probably argue that if you had your seatbelt on and you hung on real tight, that's probably survivable, but again, this is a fairly weak tornado. A stronger tornado can pick up a car and do a lot more damage, and so I do not recommend being inside a vehicle when a tornado comes. Finally, it's very important that everybody have a plan, again, for your home, get your family involved, for your place of business, and also for the schools. Make sure everybody knows what that plan is, everybody's been trained, and also you got to have backup plans. If the power goes out or you lose your intercom system, you still have to have a method to get that information out to everybody in your facility. And then finally, you practice a plan by having tornado drills and practice those drills. Remember, the time of day where we're most likely going to get severe weather is late in the afternoon, so that's the time you really need to be prepared. But severe weather can occur anytime, sometimes the worst possible time and place. We had a storm that hit a school at lunchtime in New York, blew in the doors of the cafeteria, and several students were killed there. Some of you might remember the Belvedere tornado in 1967. That occurred at 3:50 in the afternoon. It was school dismissal time. The buses had picked up the elementary school kids and pulled into the parking area at the high school, and were loading the high school students, and that's when the tornado hit. Several of those buses were flipped and rolled across the parking lot. And then we had a tornado in Evansville, Indiana at 2 o'clock in the morning a few years ago. People were sound asleep, had no idea the storm was coming. So here's where having that weather radio at your bedside could make a difference. Finally, I'm going to wrap up here with Dodger the dog. Now, I talked about the F scale for estimating how strong the winds are in a tornado. So this is something you can do at home with your pet. This is Dodger the dog, so we'll call this the D scale. And this is about a D1 force wind where the hair is just barely ruffled. If you get up to D2, now the ears are blown back. It's a little bit stronger. And at D3, you can no longer stand up. And finally, if you get up to D4, all the hair gets blown off the dog. So. Okay, that's all I have. Do we want to do questions now, or do we want to move on to? We'll do questions after the panel session. Okay, very good.
Well, good afternoon. I do not have a PowerPoint presentation for you, and so get that out of the way. My name is Jim Duncan. I'm with the Federal Emergency Management Agency here in Chicago, Region 5. We cover the 6 states of the northern Midwest. We have Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. And when we look at emergency management in this country, we have to understand that it is a team effort. It's a layered process. We have the local emergency management folks, which are represented here by the Office for Emergency Management and Communication in the city of Chicago. The state of Illinois has a very, very effective emergency management organization too. Their primary office is down in Springfield, and then they have regional offices around the area, and there's one here on the west side of Chicago. And then there's the federal piece. And we all work very closely together. It's an integrated system, and it's a layered system. But you need to understand how this process works, because when there is a significant disaster or a significant weather event, such as what Jim Alsop was showing here, the first people who are going to be there to help you out are going to be the local emergency managers. And here in Chicago, it'll be police and fire, and they work very closely with the folks from the Office for Emergency Management and Communication. They're going to be able to come in and be able to provide immediate assistance within your neighborhood. Then they can also turn to the state of Illinois when they need support, and then the state of Illinois turns to the Federal Emergency Management Agency when they need additional support from the federal government. And this can work very quickly. It may not sound like it as we talk about it here, but it can be done very quickly in a matter of phone calls and other things, because we are constantly talking to each other. We have a watch system here in Chicago, and our folks are in constant contact with our state emergency managers, and also when they see something developing in a local area, they'll actually reach out and talk with those folks as well to make sure we know what's going on. But as you've seen from the pictures and the things that Jim Alsop showed, this can be very, very powerful and very important for you to pay attention to what's going on in your local area and to know what's going on. As we look at, again, the process for emergency management, it is the local government that always maintains the responsibility to take care of their citizens. And the state and the federal people come in to support and to encourage and to help. And we do a lot of planning and training and all that when we don't have disasters ongoing. And part of what needs to do is you as individuals need to stop and think of what is your responsibility. And again, Jim Alsop talked about that, and I think you'll hear that as a common theme within our discussions today. That you need to know what are the threats that your particular, or the risks that your particular neighborhood or your area face. Jim Alsop talked about that. We have flooding in this area. We have severe storms, tornadoes, winter storms in the wintertime. Those are the kinds of things that we face. And some of those, most of those, are going to occur with little or no notice. And so it's important that we take the time to make the plans and to prepare our own selves so that we're more able to take care of ourselves until those first responders can get into your neighborhood and help you out. And in many cases, you can be the first person to help your neighbor. If you have taken the time to make sure that you're prepared and that you're going to get through whatever is occurring, then you can go help your neighbors and the people in your neighborhood so that you can provide some of that immediate capability until, again, the first responders, the police and the fire and the emergency medical folks can get there. So you need to think about that. He talked about having a plan. You need to have a family emergency plan that looks at how you will contact the members of your family if something happens in your neighborhood. Do you have all their phone numbers? Do you know where they are? And in most cases, if you do texting as opposed to cell phone conversations, research has shown that you can get 800 text messages out for every 1 minute of cell phone conversation. So you can quickly text people, just say, I am okay, or where are you? And if you train and work with your family and your dependents and people that you know and care about, you can build that capability and test it on a regular basis. And then when a disaster strikes, you can quickly find out where everybody is. He talked about knowing the emergency plan where you work. Where are the shelters if you need a shelter in your building? Where are the tornado shelters? If you have to evacuate your building, where are you going to evacuate to? Know what if you have children in school, know what the school's emergency preparedness plan is, and so that if something happens while you're at work, they're at school, you know what's happening and you know who to contact and you know how to find out where your children are. It's a very important part of what we do. And again, as we look at these issues and we go through and we're looking at, the possibility of extreme heat this summer, what are the things that you can do to help be better prepared and better organized to respond to whatever it might be. Also, you need to look, if you can, at what's happening in your neighborhood. One of the things you can do is you can find out who are the people in your neighborhood who may need some extra help. The elderly or some of the younger folks who might not have a capability that you have, and you can look in on them when there is an emergency and help them be able to respond. You also want to look for people who may have some special capabilities. You may have doctors or nurses and something like that are in your neighborhood, and they can be able to work together. As you organize your neighborhood, you can do a lot of that. Also, we would encourage, and there's some information in the back tables here, for a Citizen Emergency Response Team, or a CERT. The City of Chicago offers this. You can take some training in basic first aid, how to use a fire extinguisher, how to do light search and rescue. In other words, if there's a structure, what are some of the things that you can do to begin to help organize your neighborhood so that when the police and the fire and the emergency responders get there, you can help them quickly assess the situation and provide that information to them. So I would encourage you to stop and pull some of that information and look at it. You need to have, again, we talked about a family emergency plan. You also need to have an emergency kit. And one of the folks from our office, Mary Radine, will talk the specifics about what should be in a kit, and she has some examples back there on the table as well. So it's taking the time that you need now so that you're prepared when something happens. Again, whether it's a tornado that comes in, if it's flooding in your neighborhood, if it happens to be a winter storm next winter, what are the things that you can do now? The planning that you need to put in place. Talking with your employer, talking with your children's schools, talking with the vendors in your neighborhood so that you can be better prepared to respond to whatever may happen.